This is ppc.zone December 2025 B2B Outside the Box. I'm your host, Jill Saskin-Gales. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm a Google Ads coach and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created ppc.zone in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. Thank you to Cookiebot by Usercentrics for sponsoring ppc.zone. If you're running ads in Europe, Google's consent mode is not optional anymore, and that's where Cookiebot by Usercentrics comes in, to easily manage user consent on your website. And of course, it connects seamlessly with Google and Microsoft's consent mode, so you can gather more data to power your campaigns and get the best possible ROI. You can sign up for a free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics, plus get 10% off your first 6 months, all while supporting ppc.zone by going to consent.ppc.zone. That's consent.ppc.zone. First up in the zone is the paid marketing manager at Quality Bearings Online, where he specializes in a fascinating niche, B2B e-commerce. I've been following him online for quite some time, and I am honored to bring this brightonSEO and Performance MCR speaker to the ppc.zone stage. Today, he's here to share his perspective on B2B Microsoft advertising. Welcome, Matt Beswick.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, Jill. As Jill mentioned, I'm Matt Beswick. I'm paid marketing manager at a company called Quality Bearings Online, who are a UK-based exporter of bearings, lubricants, and engineering spares to many different countries across the world. And today that I'd like to share my perspective and give you a bit of food for thought about introducing or maybe just improving how you're using Microsoft advertising in your PPC strategy. First of all, I'd just like to set the scene and champion the case for taking Microsoft seriously as part of that PPC strategy. So on the screen now, you can see our stats over 2025 across the two main PPC platforms. We've got Google and Microsoft. You can see that despite many more sessions and many more purchases, the revenue is not that different across the two platforms, with Google just generating 23% more revenue than Microsoft for us. But Microsoft spends 48% lower than we spend on Google, which has generated a 46% higher ROAS on our Microsoft platform, mainly down to a 50% higher average order value. And most interestingly, probably from a B2B perspective, is that calls and form submissions remain relatively stable across both platforms. And most B2B marketers will probably know that that's where most of the big juicy inquiries and orders will come from, those phone calls and those form submissions, which is really interesting given the significantly reduced spend across Microsoft. And it also shows that Microsoft is a much more efficient platform in our business, and probably could be for a lot of other B2B businesses as well. So I imagine a lot of people are wondering how you managed to get those results. But before we really get into the how, I thought I would probably explain a bit of the why around why some people in B2B will see better results in Microsoft. The main one, and the one that is most talked about, is in B2B will more often than not be targeting a slightly older demographic, a demographic that fits into job titles where they've been promoted to make decisions, they've got purchasing power, and that demographic is much more highly represented in Microsoft than it is on Google. Secondly, you'll often see less competition, so lower CPCs, but on that same point, you'll more frequently see, if you have got competition on Microsoft, really poor execution. A lot of people will be really spending a lot of time on Google and neglecting their Microsoft campaigns, and that gives B2B e-com sellers quite a good opportunity to match a steal on their competition. And a third one, which I learned at a PPC Live event recently, is that a lot of big businesses in the US now have a Microsoft-only policy, so they're not allowed to download apps like Google Chrome. So if you're wanting to sell to those businesses and you're not marketing on Microsoft, then you're likely missing an opportunity and you're unlikely to sell to any of those businesses. Now we'll get into a bit of the why And the first and most important point that I would always raise to anybody that's starting out on Microsoft is to try and come up with a platform-specific strategy. Microsoft users shop differently, they buy different products, they tend to spend more money. So if they're doing all those different things in different ways, you should treat them different to the way that you're treating your Google customers. The first way that I tend to do that is avoid any Google imports. Your campaigns are likely to need different budgets, work on different bidding strategies. And if you're importing from Google, it'll often override the settings that you've put into your Microsoft campaigns. And you'll often see people that have got horror stories in the past about Google imports coming through, changing a bid budget that they've set at, say, £20 a day, and then the import then changes it to £200 to match your Google strategy, your Google campaigns. On a similar point around that value-based bidding, I often consolidate campaigns down, take consolidation to the absolute extreme. So where I may have 25 plus campaigns in Google, I'll be running less than 10 in Microsoft, given that there's lots and less data points, lots less conversions running through those Microsoft campaigns. You'll want to make sure those are consolidated down and you've got quite a lot of data density for the campaigns to work properly. If you are just starting out, I would always encourage people, especially at Quality Bearings Online, we've got over 50,000 SKUs. So creating search campaigns for all those separate SKUs or product types is difficult. So we leaned heavily on DSA to start with to work out which products work well and then start to push those forward in their own independent search campaigns. But initially, really lean on DSA. And these final 2 points I will come on to a bit more in my next few slides, but definitely try Microsoft's version of PMax. It is different. It is very different to how Google works. But one thing that I will stress, and I'll show you on the next slide, is that it does work. And then the final thing around the platform-specific strategies, I call these the Microsoft differentiators, but use the things that are only available on Microsoft to your advantage. So on this slide, you can see an example of me showing that PMax does actually work. You can see that when it's given healthy budgets, it's generating healthy amount of conversions, a lot of revenue coming through to our business, and at a very, very healthy ROAS. I tend to run it alongside shopping, so we've got both of those running alongside each other, and you can see that by doing that, we're still managing to get lots and lots of conversions coming through. And one of the main things that I will say about Microsoft's Performance Max, if you are protective of your brand and you've got brand stuff in there to protect any Performance Max spend on brand, so you've got your negatives in there much differently to Google, Microsoft will actually protect your brand. It respects it. It won't go shopping in auctions for your brand. And you can see that in the search query reports. And then these are the differentiators that I mentioned previously, things that are only available for you to use on Microsoft, but will really help you scale your Microsoft spend. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner when we introduced some of these things and scale spend on Performance Max. When we increased spend, the revenue followed. So the main one being audience ads. We've pushed quite a lot of budget recently into audience ads with tailored messages to our type of users. Audience ads on Microsoft are significantly better than they are on Google. The placements that you get there are much better. Another thing that's Microsoft only is impression-based remarketing, so you can get access to people that have previously looked or seen one of your ads but maybe shopped with somebody else, so it gives you an idea that they're in market. Obviously, we've got LinkedIn-based audiences, which for any B2B marketer should be an absolute B2B heaven. You're finding out real in-depth information about what the businesses are that you should sell into, what type of people you sell into, and that should be a real heaven for any B2B seller. And then the final thing that we've recently got access to, which is a real favourite of mine, is feed-based audience ads. So we can now start to put our shopping feeds into those audience placements and get coverage on all of Microsoft's network. So to finish my presentation today, I just want to leave everybody with these two questions. One, is it time that you stopped ignoring Microsoft? Or two, do you simply need to start treating the platform independently? That's everything I've got to speak about today. If anybody wants to speak to me about Microsoft or Google Shopping or any of the things that I talk about frequently on LinkedIn, then you can follow me on this QR code here. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the zone. As Matt said, you can find him on LinkedIn to keep following his insights and to get in touch with him. If you would like to apply to speak at ppc.zone, you can do so on our website. That's ppc.zone. Thank you one more time to our sponsor, CookieBot by Usercentrics, for supporting our mission to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. You can learn more at consent.ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jill Saskin-Gales. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss our future events. I look forward to seeing you next time in the zone.